Hey YouTube, what's going on? Son of Sanguinius here, and today we're going to be continuing our Blood Angels Tactics videos with a look at the Land Raiders. Yes, you heard me correctly. Today we're not going to be going over one, not two, but all three of the Land Raiders in the Blood Angels Codex. So you might want to, grab a snack, get comfortable, because this video might be quite a bit longer than the other ones, as I'm basically going to have to go over 3 data sheets in this video. So we're going to start with the basic Land Raider. It comes in at 250 points. It is Ballista Skill 4, Front, Side, and Rear Armor 14, with 4 hull points. For War Gear, it has a twin-linked Heavy Bolter. It has 2 twin-linked Blast Cannons, a Searchlight, and Smoke Launchers. For Special Rules, it has Assault Vehicle and Power of the Machine Spirit. It's also a transport, so its transport capacity is 10 models. It has no fire points, and its access points, let's see, the Land Raider has 1 access point on each side of the hull and 1 at the front. For options, it may take items from the Blood Angels vehicle equipment list, and it may take a multi-melta for 10 points. So the basic Land Raider, just kind of looking at it, it's kind of odd comparing it to the other two right off the bat. So what I see in the basic Land Raider is some good anti-armor capabilities with those, twin-link glass cannons. Obviously, those are going to be some nice, powerful, and reliable shots. Not just for taking out enemy vehicles, but also monstrous creatures as well. You're going to be able to punch through things like Tyrannofexes, Carnifexes, what have you. And you can, definitely do some serious damage with that. The only downside is that it has the lowest transport capacity of all 3 of the Land Raider variants. So you're only looking at 10 models. So at most you're looking at something like 5 Terminators or 5, Death Company with jump packs, or 10 just basic tacticals, or 10 Death Company with no jump packs, Stern Guard, what have you, whatever you decide to throw in these guys. So we're going to switch over now. We're going to take a look at the Crusader real quick. Now, I won't go over everything. I'll basically just touch on the War Gear and the transport capacity, because everything else is relatively the same. So for War Gear, it has a twin-linked Assault Cannon instead of the twin-linked Heavy Bolter. It has 2 Hurricane Bolters in place of the twin-linked Last Cannon. It also has Frag Assault Launchers, which is interesting. Basically, anything that assaults out of it after it disembarks that turn, the unit is treated as being equipped with assault grenades. It also has Searchlight and Smoke Launchers. Now, the access points are basically the same. However, the Crusader has the largest transport capacity of all 3 of the Land Raider variants, with 16 models. This is pretty good. So that means, you're going to be able to fit, 8 Terminators in there, or, you can fit in, a full squad of, tacticals, or Stern Guard, or Death Company, whatever, unit, assaulty unit, ideally, kind of fits your flavor. And you can also, tag on some special characters in there as well. So looking at, the weapons that it's equipped with, the Hurricane Bolters and the Assault Cannon are definitely going to be good for some anti-infantry fire support. The Hurricane Bolters, for those of you that don't know, they're basically 3 twin-link bolt guns fired as a single weapon. So that means, at mid-range, so beyond 12 inches, you're going to be firing 3 twin-link bolt guns, basically. And at short range, 12 inches or below, you're going to be firing 6 shots, twin-linked, just the basic bolter profile. Keep in mind, you also have the Power of the Machine Spirit. So going back to the regular Land Raider for a second, that means, you can fire at, 2 different vehicles or 2 different monstrous creatures, or, 2 different units that you wish to kill. Same thing with the Crusader here. You can basically fire 2 Hurricane Bolters at 2 different units, and then the Assault Cannon can, just sort of tag on to one of those as you see fit. So, moving on, we're not going to hit on the Redeemer, and again, most of the stats and everything are the same, with the exception of the War Gear and the transport capacity. So for War Gear, it still has the twin-linked Assault Cannon like the Crusader does. However, in place of those 2 Hurricane Bolters, It has 2 Flamestorm cannons. It's still got the frag assault launcher, still got the searchlight, and still got the smoke launchers. For transport capacity, it only has 12 models, so it's better than the Land Raider, but not as good as the Crusader. It's kind of a middle of the road there, so that means you're going to be able to bring 6 Terminators or 6, jump pack equipped guys. You may want to bring, say, like Tacticals or Stern Guard, full 10-man squad with, an additional independent character or 2. You can definitely do that. So looking at what it's equipped with, the Flamestone cannons and the Twin-Linked Assault Cannon, obviously good for close-range devastation. And the transport capacity, it's pretty decent as far as, compared to the other 2 goes. It's not the greatest, but, it's not the worst. All right, so that was quite a lengthy description here. So where do these 3 variants kind of fit? Well, going back to the first Land Raider here, the one with the twin-linked heavy bolters and the twin-linked last cannons. I sort of see its place best as, sort of long-range anti-armor fire support. That isn't to say that you can't get close with it, because, frankly, Land Raiders have the armor and the special rules to benefit from getting up there nice and close. However, with the twin-linked last cannons, if your opponent, is running something like a horde army, or, they have, lots of little units, those twin-linked last cannons really aren't going to do you a whole lot of good. And most times, anyway, you're probably going to want your units inside to be assaulting other infantry-based units. Not normally, monstrous creatures or vehicles. Although it should be said that with something like Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators, for example, if that's what you're running inside of your Land Raider, you can basically throw those guys against anything and have a pretty good chance of winning. So even though the regular Land Raider could certainly find its position as sort of a long-range, anti-armor, anti-monstrous creature sort of vehicle, it wouldn't be my first choice for that role. Simply because, although it does have power of the machine spirit, its line of sight, with those weapons is going to be limited because the hull of the Land Raider is so wide. It might be difficult to get some cover too, so it's difficult to try and get it so it won't be so vulnerable, which isn't so much of a problem considering it's got armor 14. But again, as I've said before, your opponent will not waste any time taking out the most powerful units in your army, and a Land Raider, being one of the largest vehicles and one of the most powerful vehicles that any Space Marine army of all flavors can deploy, it will definitely be an attention grabber, and your opponent may definitely choose to focus on it. So going back to the Land Raiders Battlefield Row, I honestly find a little bit of difficulty trying to pin it down. You could give it like a multi-melta and to sort of aid on that sort of anti-armor, anti-monstrous creature battlefield role. Again, it's one of those things. I just, for the amount of points that you're going to be paying for this thing, it will be durable and it can definitely do the job. However, I think honestly, I'd rather go with something like a Razorback with a last cannon and twin-linked plasma cannon, or maybe just a Predator with its 2 last cannon sponsons and a twin-linked last cannon turret on top. I would much rather go with that because at least with that, it can be fast. It can move around a little bit. It's not as large of a footprint on the battlefield, so it'll be easier to try and put it into a position where it can get some cover. Now I realize that in the Angels Blade supplement there is the Lucifer Armor Task Force that does make Land Raiders fast. That will be for another video. I will. I promise you guys. I will touch on. Well, not just touch on, but go in a very extensive review of Angel's Blade when I get to it. Chances are I'm actually going to be starting that next week because all that's left after the heavy support choices are going to be the 2 Lords of War. So that's going to be Dante and Gabriel Seth, and then I may also touch on the battle company that's in the Codex, but after that I'll hit on Angel's Blade. That's certainly next up on the list, so stay tuned for that. However, in the meantime here, as I've said, I just find a little bit difficulty finding the place for the Land Raider, the basic one, simply because it's it's sort of geared toward anti-armor, and it has some long-range weapons, but with the assault vehicle and the transport capacity, it just seems kind of like a waste of a good transport to just sort of keep it in the backfield. Not to say you can't rush with it, but you're sort of I don't know. Maybe if you had this as part of like a monstrous creature hunting unit, so let's say you did have, Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Terminators inside a basic Land Raider with, the last cannons or whatever. Let's say you did decide to go monstrous creature hunting. I could see it, definitely see it in that kind of capacity. It's got the armor to take the hits. It's got, the firepower to dish out. So, MC hunting, I can see that, depending on what unit you put inside. But honestly, the regular Land Raider would not be my first pick. So now we move on to the Land Raider Crusader and the Land Raider Redeemer. So where do these guys sit? How do they kind of stack up? It's interesting because, honestly, both the Crusader and the Redeemer are fairly similar in that they dish out a lot of good, powerful anti-infantry firepower. However, the biggest difference is with the Crusader, you can actually reach out and touch guys with all of your weapons at mid-range, and by mid-range I mean, above 12 inches, 24 and below, basically. And with the Redeemer, you're going to have to get up close to make use of those Flamestorm cannons. So between the two, I would honestly say that the Crusader not only has the better transport capacity, but is also it has the longer range as far as anti-infantry firepower goes. And even though it may the Hurricane Bolters may not be as powerful as the Flamestorm cannons, the fact that you can reach out and touch someone well before you get into flamer range means that, frankly, the Crusader might actually be the better of the two. I've heard a lot of people say that the Crusader is of all the Land Raider variants, the standard Land Raider variants excluding Forge World for a second, that the Crusader is probably the best variant of the three. And I can definitely see that, and I'm more in agreement with that than I am in disagreement. Especially when you consider, Blood Angels as an assault-based army. We obviously like to have, a lot of shots, a lot of dice, soften up those targets so our, Death Company can get out in assault, our, Vanguard vets, can get out in assault, our Terminators can get out in assault, so on and so forth. I can definitely see the Land Raider Crusader being sort of the best of the three. Let's see here. Flipping my notes here. Now that isn't to say that the Redeemer is necessarily out and over yet. It's interesting. They give a little bit of flavor, fluff text. With all of the data slate entries. In the books or whatever. And most people think it's just a whole bunch of fluff. And to be fair, it is. However, they also give maybe just a few snidbits of tactica within there because even though the Land Raider Redeemer does have some shortcomings as far as the range goes, that's not to say that the Redeemer isn't devastating once it does get into range. Because when you do get into range, those Flamestorm cannons are pretty much going to kill most things on the tabletop. You're talking Strength 6, AP 3, ignores cover. That's devastating. That is Marines gone, potentially whole squads gone. That is, some monstrous creatures, like Carnifexes, they're going to be in some trouble. Certainly a lot of Horde type armies, they're going to be gone. Gaunts, Boys, even something like Tyrannid Warriors, not going to stand a chance. These things will pack a punch, and they're going to do some damage. And keep in mind, you do have that assault cannon too, so it's not like you're going to be completely disadvantaged at range. You will have that assault cannon, and you can just sort of spin the assault cannon around to sort of tag an enemy. However, it will be kind of difficult to try and get both of your flamestorm cannons off, because it requires not only for you to be close, but it also requires your opponent to have positioned their units in such a way where you can sort of, fit a Land Raider between them, and then, fire both sponsons in on them to try and get 2 hits. And I doubt that your opponent would really give you such an opportunity. So there's some downsides with the Redeemer. Although frankly, I do like the Redeemer, and I do plan on building one for my army. I'm gonna do it kind of like a Flesh Tearers color scheme and all that. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Land Raiders. Honestly, I think the Land Raider Crusader, as far as like an assault army themed kind of deal, I feel like the Crusader is probably the best of the three. Although again, it all comes down to the specifics of your army and the specifics of your opponent's army. That obviously factors into it. For example, if your opponent has a lot of monstrous creatures, I can definitely see going with something like a regular Land Raider with the twin link blast cannons and just sort of creating like a monstrous creature hunting squad. That is certainly a possibility. However, for general games, I would probably lean more toward the Crusader out of these three. However, I wouldn't be so quick to toss the Redeemer out because the difficulty is, if you can't get in the range, then your two side sponsons are useless. However, when you do get into range, you're going to be ignoring cover. You're going to be dishing out, Strength 6, AP 3. Firepower there, and with Power of the Machine Spirit, assuming your opponent, has positioned their troops in such a way, you will be able to, essentially tag 2 units in addition to your assault cannon, provided you can, sort of angle the Land Raider just right to where you can turn your sponson to actually open fire on your enemy. Whew. So that's about all I got for this video. Either way, no matter which of the three variants you go for, the Land Raiders are powerful, and they're designed to get your assaulty units where they need to be. That isn't necessarily to say that you can't have something like Stern Guard or Tacticals or whatever you want in there, but here I try and focus on making the most out of the special rules and the abilities of every unit. And for Land Raiders, they have good transport capacity and they're assault vehicles. So if you're not assaulting out of them after you disembark, I just sort of feel like you're wasting something there personally. But either way, guys, I am very curious to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments. I realized that I kind of did this a little bit differently. I just sort of skimmed over them all and just sort of kind of lumped them all together. But I'm hoping that I was able to touch on most things. As always, I'm sure you guys will point out something that I've been missing and all that. And once again, don't worry about the things in Angels Blade. They will definitely come, probably next week, as weekends are usually my break. So anyway, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.